Okay, the meeting is recording.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kwame Afray. The date is May 1st. The time is 7:35, and I called the Land Use Committee meeting for Community Board 17 to order. Just for clarity for what the purpose of this committee is committee advocates for the responsibility of planning and developing or development within the district. We provide input for zoning changes, business improvement districts, variances, special permits, and other land use matters in accordance with the New York City Charter. We strive for balance, which has been a difficult task lately for our community's character, fostering thoughtful development with the benefit to the benefit of all residents. And our responsibilities includes landmark historic preservation, housing issues, budget matters related to the HPD, DOB, and the DCP, which is the Housing for Preservation and Development, the Department of Buildings, and the Department of Design. Excuse me. Sorry. And more or less that's what we cover when we speak on these matters. I'll wait a little bit for the meeting minutes to happen. It's not much to report on the chairperson's report, but I'll dive into it. I did attend a town hall meeting on April 8th, which was at PS 109 for the mayor. Various discussions were held, broad range of topics from affordability to the safety of children, attending schools that are adjacent to mental health facilities. Very, very good conversation. The things were out there on the table. How they're going to be addressed is another question. I did get a follow-up email from them. We're hoping to see if that conversation can continue. And I believe that we, as a community board, are having our own town hall meeting, which I think the flyers went out today for May 8th, which would be a forum to continue those conversations that started that night, if we didn't have enough time to do so. On the 12th of April, we did have another visit to DeCosto under different conditions, which was good for me to see. But this visit had a lot more residents on the visit, some of which were our committee members, which we're all going to speak on today. The goal for today is to take the data points and the facts that we've had to this date and formally come up with a position on where we stand with the proposal that was brought to our attention. Ultimately, we'll weigh those on the scale today, and the goal is to leave today with some formal direction, so we can draft a letter and then hopefully present that letter at the community board meeting this month to see what everybody's opinions are there. I'll get into the details and the facts and share some pictures about that later, because I'm sure that's going to be a conversation or deep conversation for tonight. On my list, I also have that the city did pause fines for not composting effective immediately. Compost fines were not applied to buildings under 30 units in New York City. It's unfortunate for the residents for the first 2 weeks or the first 3 weeks of that deployment. I got a couple tickets, but if you do have a home that's under 30 units, you will not be subject to those fines. I don't know for how long, but you won't be subject to those fines probably till after the mayoral race is over. Just read between the lines there. And I did make a visit to the site that Miss Bennett asked me to go to, on the corner of Rogers and it's actually on Rogers between Snyder and Erasmus Street. Is that correct? I'm sure that's the site. I did look it up. I looked it up. It was just permits for demolition. There's no active permits there currently. You know, it is a corner lot. It does have two zones or two excuse me. It does have two, because it's on it does have two zoning variances because it is on a commercial street. So on the commercial Rogers side, it's a C23, and on the Erasmus side, it's an R6. We know what happens when the forest combine there. Something could potentially be going on there, but nothing's actively happening there at this time. There's no additional permits for design that's been put in. Nothing other than a couple of fines, I guess, for not having upkeep on the actual property itself. But I
Yeah.
wasn't able to find any design drawings or any open permits for the project outside of the demolition of the building that was there originally.
All right, thank you.
All right. And that's more or less it. I'll open up the floor now to any questions for anybody has for me pertaining to the report, if any.
Sorry, Chair Frey, I just wanted to reconfirm with the collective call. Was everyone able to hear Chair Frey clearly? I saw the comment, but I didn't see a clarification from anyone else. If you can hear him fine.
He sounded fine to me.
It was clear.
Okay.
It's clear.
Sorry. Yeah, I didn't hear the. I don't have the chat in front of me.
Yeah,
Apologies
it's
for that.
clear. It was clear for me as well. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't a wider spread issue.
Okay. All right. That was more or less it. It's been a quiet month. There hasn't been much activity, not in comparison to other months. This meeting is probably going to end up just being dedicated to the parting response because I did mention, if you didn't hear before, that Con Edison did have to reschedule. So we're working on a date. That date may not happen on one of our nights. I'm trying to make it happen on that night, but based on their availability and the importance and the focus that we want to have on expanding our topic, we want to make sure we have enough time, and we don't want to, like Ms. Quashi mentioned earlier, wait too long before it becomes a foregone thought. Sorry about that. Oh God. All right, so I guess we'll go to unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business? Anybody?
I don't know that we have any unfinished business, but we do have March meeting minutes awaiting approval.
Yeah, there's not enough members here yet for a vote.
Okay.
So, okay. No unfinished business. All right, so straight to the new business. The topic at hand. Sorry, I prepared myself for what's gonna happen. We know we're gonna state the facts of the situation. We did have residents that attended, and there were 2 site visits for the Costo. They're calling it expansion, but it's not quite that. It's more or less an upgrade to some of the facilities, infrastructure now, and some changes in the operation. The facility is located on 1481 Troy Avenue, excuse me. We know it's a carting facility that deals with construction debris. We did get verification that at the facility, try to share some pictures actually. At the facility, they are dealing with 3 kinds of materials. The materials are construction and demolition materials, which is a combination of glass, metals, sheetrock, drywall, plaster. Sheetrock and drywall, the same thing. Plaster and other types of those materials. They also deal with stone, which typically comes from chopping up sidewalks, and the soil that also comes from excavating sidewalks and streets. Those are the 3 types of materials that they deal with at the facility. The facility is currently an open air facility, which means that trucks come in through the facility. They dump the materials there. While they're dumping, there's a person there that hoses the materials down to make sure to try to keep the dust that it accumulates or dust that it creates from going airborne too much. They separate the materials into containers. They don't actually process materials on site. All 3 material types are actually separated and put into containers, and they're taken off site to actually be dealt with. I'm just trying to state some of the facts before we get into the conversations, and I want everybody or anyone that did attend to also give their point of view to try to bring clarity to what the situation is. The idea is that they're trying to construct a fully enclosed prefabricated building. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I'm just trying to share a photo. Excuse me. They're trying to where was it? Oh, that's interesting. All right, yeah. They're trying to construct a fully enclosed prefabricated building for C&D processing. They also want to install wastewater treatment pre-treatment system, which is a series of multiple things. It's a bunch of bioswells that's going to be installed on the exterior. And yeah, that's in the drawing studio. It's a bunch of bioswells that's going to go into the exterior to try to help some of the ponding issues that we actually witnessed because we went there and it was raining significantly. So I got to actually see the site in two different types of conditions. They're also building a 34-foot high sound attenuation wall that's going to be covering at least three sides of the facility now. They're going to be building in the facility, they're going to be building 22-foot tall roll-up gates where what I'm trying to show you in these pictures will be concealed in the future. A truck would roll in, the gates would roll up. They would dump the materials inside of this enclosed facility, which is misting water at all times, or at least when the trucks and the vehicles are in there to dump their materials. There's also a exhaust fan system that'll be filtering the air and releasing that air outward. They also want to upgrade the stormwater handling to prevent untreated discharge inside of their connection to the actual sewage line in the street. The idea of it is to bring all the processing of materials that are C&D. I want to make that clear because there's three material types that are C&D, which is probably one of the most egregious ones that creates the dust environment that you see now, and build a facility that encloses that operation. They're saying that it would also reduce odor and noise. And that's the gist of it. Does anybody want to speak to their experience? Yes, yes, yes. Yes, Hazel. The
Yeah,
floor is
good
yours.
evening. I thought the place was absolutely horrible, and there was mud everywhere, and because it was raining, and they were just trucks dumping all that debris in right onto the ground. So that's been going on. I think the thing that disturbed me the most is the relationship that the state representative had with them. It was a little too cold, chummy. And I didn't think he was really, seriously considering what the residents were disturbed about. And,
You're
and
speaking
I
about the
found
gentleman
I
from
found that
DEC.
disturbing. Yeah, the man from DEC.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of ponding. I know that street had to have been recently paved because it was really unpaved years ago when that Entenmann's was there. There's a lot of seagulls flying over, and they claim they don't do medical waste. It was a typo. How do you have a typo in your, when Ms. Quashie asked about the medical waste, they said they're not processing medical waste. Then how is that in their paperwork?
She blinks back here and looks at Dawn. Her sister's eyes are like grief and relief.
Okay.
Grief
I'm sorry, I didn't know you were finished. Oh, okay. She lowered
Really?
her hand. Yeah, you kind of got cut off there. I wasn't sure if you were completing.
Wait a minute. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah, you're going in and out.
can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Yes. I was a little, I said I was a little concerned of the relationship that the man from DEC had with them as opposed to us as residents.
Would you
Yeah.
mind elaborating on that? I really think that it's helpful for us to understand the heart of what you're speaking to, and also to be able to frame that as something we may be speaking on in this letter.
I mean, I'm not the only one that observed it, but I cannot remember what, there was something that someone asked that they wanted to have, they would have to make a change. And the architect said, the consultant said it would take them another 2 years, they would be postponed for another 2 years if they had to file the paperwork for it. And he said, oh, don't do it that way, just go ahead and do something else. And then afterward, you can do that. And I mean, and he was really, very much with them and not really explaining anything to us.
So to understand your point, you're speaking to when at the site visit there was an explanation of a particular process the company may need to undergo to
No.
perform a certain need at the site that was kind of like creating a scenario where the DEC representative and company representative were having this moment in conversation that wasn't clarified for the visiting community members to understand more clearly what they were saying. It felt a bit like there was this disconnect in ensuring that throughout the visit, everyone could be fully in tune with the aspects of development at this
No.
site. Is that the heart of what you're getting at, Hazel?
No,
Seemed to be
not really.
no neutrality. They were neutral. They were pretty much sounding to me like prejudicial, and they took one side over the other.
Okay. Just to help keep things orderly, since it's a virtual call, we can have one person speak at a time. So Miss Hazel, if you could clarify, and then Miss Adele, I heard you speaking. Feel free to check in after.
I'm sure someone else will comment on it because it was quite obvious. They've had a relationship for a long time. He was just there, really.
I
I mean, you didn't
understand.
feel that way?
Yeah, they clearly been dealing with each other, at least the design team. It's not the first time I feel like they've dealt with each other. And it was the second time for me actually seeing them together, because the gentleman in question was present at the first walkthrough on the 29th. Sorry. Did you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. So
So
trying
just
to,
to,
yeah, I have on the screen now, I guess the area in question. I think that it might have been misrepresented, but can you verify that this is the medical waste, or is there something else in this document that states what you are stating? Can anybody? This is the document from June 5th, from the June 5th community meet on June 5th, January 5th community meeting. Um, the the only thing that I saw relating to medical waste was what I have on the screen now. Is there another document that I may have missed? Sorry, I can't see the screen because I have this shared.
I don't see any hands
Okay,
or any comments in the chat on that.
where did this thing
Vanessa's
go?
hand is up.
Oh, so Vanessa,
But
yeah, Miss
she
Quashi.
had her hand up to speak.
Okay,
Not on this subject.
all right, Miss Quashi, your knowledge. She there? I might have to stop sharing this. I can't see anything for some
I'll
reason.
help you.
Okay,
I'll help.
where did it go?
I do not see her unmuted.
Oh, there we go.
And actually, I don't. Yeah, I don't see her unmuted. Miss Quashi, can you hear us? We're just making sure to uplift you. Having something to speak to. Okay. Perhaps she's having a audio.
You there?
That wasn't her.
Okay.
So-
This is a little strange. Yeah, there you go. All right. Um, anybody else? Was anybody else that made a site visit want to speak to what they saw? Try to illustrate how they feel on the situation, potentially bring some
Yes.
color.
Hi,
Yeah,
Miss
Okay.
Allison
Quashi.
Martinez. She just. Oh, Miss Quashi.
Yes.
Yes, sorry, I had to answer the doorbell.
Okay. No problem.
Um, I agree with what I heard from Miss Martinez. The place was deplorable. I live right down the block from the location, and I've been living here for like 40 years. I was shocked. Um, this was a darn busy day for them. I saw a couple of moving vans coming in there, like these white trucks, very small white vans come to the location. They backed up into the place. Not only did they have debris, they had garbage, which was disgusting. And it was raining that day. And I was sick to my stomach. So not only did they have mixed garbage in there, it just wasn't just construction stuff in there. It was garbage.
That's garbage.
So they should have been shut down, period. And for the guy to be standing there from the city, he didn't even blink an eye.
From the state.
From the state, yeah, from the state.
Yeah.
He didn't even blink. So what Miss Martinez and I witnessed, he was chummy. And it's like, we're doomed. So what's going on here is like, oh, they're correcting a problem, but this problem needs to be gone and out this neighborhood. Because what they're doing right now, they need to be closed. The Board of Health should be here. This is bigger than a bread box. And this was on a Saturday where they don't have that much business. And when I made the comment to her, oh, I see the seagulls are here. And she goes, really? I says, why are the seagulls here? And I made a statement to our assemblywoman and said, the seagulls are here. You see them? They're on this side of Troy Avenue and not on the other side where the residents are. And she goes, oh, they're just here maybe because it's raining. I said, and then Mr. Frey said, Sheriff Frey says, they were here on the day that was sunny. And I said, and she goes, oh. And I said, no, they're here every day because I live across the street. And just the other day, they were screaming for some reason. I don't know why they were screaming, but I have soundproof windows and they block out 75% of the noise. And they were screaming very loudly on Troy Avenue and Farragut Road. For what reason? I was busy that day. I couldn't go outside to witness what was going on, but they were screaming out there quite loudly. Oh, I think it was Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. So there's something going on.
Mm-hmm.
So,
If I could just interject, Ms. Quashi, you're bringing
sure,
up some points I want to make sure are elaborated as well.
sure.
You said the conditions of the site were deplorable. For
Yes.
note-taking purposes, if you could be specific to what that meant, to what that means, that would be appreciated.
Sure,
And
sure.
also,
It was dangerous to walk in.
one moment.
Sure.
Just two things. I want to make sure you're able to articulate it.
Oh,
So
I can.
oh, I know you can. So you got it. So deplorable conditions, elaborating on that, and
Mhm.
let us know what are your specific concerns with the seagull activity at the site.
there's not just one seagull, there's many seagulls.
Mhm.
Mm, wow,
Ugh,
what a mess.
there we go.
Whoa.
That took a while.
And that's on the drive day, and they refuse for us to let us take pictures. They did not want us to take pictures. And you could, if you could easily twist your ankle in there.
All right. The three fixtures I was able to find quickly. But what we're observing now is how the facility is now. You know, so unpaved roads, unpaved pathways. Um, that's a
Nails,
that's a
a lot of
backhoe.
nails,
Yeah, yeah. So,
pieces of wood. There's a reason why they want you to wear metal toe shoes.
Thank you.
There's
no problem.
holes, there's craters where you can't see, especially if it's raining and there's
Yeah.
water there. You don't know what you're
Yes.
walking into.
Hmm.
What's it in the black community?
Thank you, Ms. Quashi. If we could move forward, just out
Sure.
of respect to time.
Mhm.
Sure.
I did see Allison, Miss Martinez, your hand was up, and there was someone else, but it appears they brought their hand down. I just wanted to make sure I counted for who's next. Allison, would you like to go next?
Sure. I went on a day that was rainy, and obviously, considering the type of work that goes on there, it's not a pleasant place to be, but I assume that that's the nature of the work. I did see from being there, it was clear to me that the project the intention is to basically get it up to current standards of how they should have really been operating all along, which is like enclosing a lot of the work, especially that causes the dust to kick up with whatever is contaminants may or may not be within what gets dumped off there. Um, it's clear it's just been operating as an open air space doing this work right next to a school, which in all truth, since this place was there before, the school never should have been built there at all. So whatever elected officials or other community stakeholders were involved in deciding that that was a good location for the school, they, to me, they made an error in judgment. They had an error in judgment in terms of what was best for the staff of that school and the students and the community residents. I did invite on that day Augustine Gibaud, who was a engineer from who's works on air quality monitoring at NYU, so that he could see that site with us, and he did follow up with his response, which I'm going to put into the chat right now. And oops, you can see it. And what he suggested is that there was like a lack of emphasis on performance tracking and proactive community engagement, and he thinks that going forward there needs to be more like day-to-day or tracking of monitoring of emissions, even after, if the project moves forward, even after that's the case, being clear about what data is collected and reported back to the community about conditions and whatever emanates from there. Also around noise, not just dust, and that their lab has expertise in sensor deployments and could make recommendations for us for suitable air quality and acoustic sensors for this. So I think we should take advantage of the expertise that's available to us and figure out also what we would want them to the custode to provide in terms of protections or trainings or workshops and all of that, or programming for that school next door. And then ultimately the community has to figure out And I don't think that's going to be resolved with this, but taking a whole holistic look to and getting data and maybe a lot more investigation and knowledge around the whole industrial area, what goes on in each one of those businesses there, and what is safe for the community to live with and what is not, and then work with the elected officials and other and those industries to either get them all up to par or figure out ways for them to maybe not be here anymore if they cannot do this work in a way that is safe or environmentally sound for people to live with. But those are my thinking. But I do think that the goal, this project, in some ways has to move forward because it's an improvement on what exists by enclosing what this work that's done in an open space. But that woman from Deed said that the medical waste was a typo, but I find that hard to believe that you would submit a report on your website to DEC in support of your project and you haven't gone with a fine-tooth comb to find any errors and medical waste being in there. That can't be, that has to be in whatever letter this community board drafts. It has to be confirmed that that is not something that they permit on site.
I did confirm it. I showed the letter. It's the only one I could find. It did say that it will not be dealing with those materials on the letter. It didn't say that it would be. But I am asking if somebody else found anything that says otherwise, we'll include it. But the
Okay.
only thing I was able to find on the actual document, for clarity, I'll just read the section. It'll take me a while to find it. Sorry. Was they were listing the materials out, I guess, that they did deal with, and then there was an exclusionary list at the tail end. It says nature of proposed pre-action. Oh, sorry, nature of proposed project action and purpose. The applicant
Can you share
proposes
your
to
screen?
sure. Yeah. Let me see. Let me see. I gotta stop this one and share this one. Everyone sees it?
Yes.
Okay. So it says, we'll just continue to read it. Permits the facility to provide cost-effective separation, recovery, and recycling of recyclable materials during the process of C&D debris. That is defined as a waste resulting from construction, remodeling, repair, and demolition of structures. The applicant will continue to reclaim ferrous and non-ferrous metals. For clarity, ferrous and non-ferrous metals means metals that are magnetic or not magnetic. Plastics and paper, cardboard, OCC, and other C&D debris. In addition to the coastal, will be segregated by grade. Excavated materials will consist of soil, rock, and other materials excavated during construction or maintenance activities for further reuse or recycling. At a minimum, hazardous waste, liquid waste, asbestos, regulated medical waste, municipal solid waste, petroleum solid waste, and other unauthorized waste and materials would not be accepted at the facility.
I am curious how they can confirm that when that stuff is just carted and dropped off there, how they know what's in it necessarily or not.
Yeah, and
That's
that's
a good
and
point.
yeah, that's the caveat of what they do. They wouldn't know until they actually did the separation, and then they would have to call the appropriate department more likely. I don't know how they do that, you know. I would
Is
assume that the people that are bringing the materials and them, you know, I don't even know if they're required to be licensed. I'm not sure how that whole thing actually works as far as that's concerned, you know.
is this the latest version or is this
This,
was this the original version?
that's the original that I
Okay.
have in my possession, the June 6th version. So if somebody has a different one, that's why I'm asking. I don't know. I don't know if there was many versions here. This is the one that I have with all the addresses, as the flyers. You know, I even read through this. I even put it in the search to make sure it wasn't somewhere else, but I couldn't find it in this particular document. materials with lead. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it probably does or can probably deal with materials with lead. But lead materials, asbestos, is supposed to be handled by different facilities, I would think. But I can't speak to their operation, you know. We spoke to it at length. Do we have, okay, we have Dr. Renault.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Chair Frey. My disclaimer is, and pardon the noise, I'm just driving home. But my disclaimer is I'm in no way taking up for De Costal. But what you read, Chair Frey, are they saying these things because this is what their permit covers? That's one question that I have. And have we had any 311 reports? Are we able to pull any type of 311 reports over the years? Like, has anyone complained? Has anyone complained in the community? Has there been noise? I'm just wondering, I'm wondering if we can collect like additional data just to put something in this letter. And maybe their permit, if there is such a thing as a permit, maybe it covers like mixed use. I mean, I've rented, and I know a lot of people have rented dumpsters before. And sometimes we would say, oh, we're going to be putting household use in there, household products. But yet I've dumped maybe bricks or other stuff in there. And again, I'm in no way taking up for them, but I'm wondering if we can clarify a few things regarding their permit and if we can pull additional data to go in the letter or as our follow-up.
Oh, we definitely could pull some data and make a request to see what the history is. Hopefully it's tethered to the address, which would make it an easier ask. Because, you know, the entire block is more or less that side of the street is like, it looks like it's storage, mostly storage for cinder blocks. And this facility is in the middle of, looks like storage for cinder blocks. That's what it appears like to me. It doesn't appear to be adjacent to anything. I'm not even sure if the businesses across the street from it were active, you know? So yeah, that's definitely something that we could look into. The history of complaints.
And
There's
thank you,
probably complaints that we could actually look up now. I try to do that now. It's associated with the building and see what happens.
And my last point, I'm wondering if any of their workers has ever complained. Are there any lawsuits? And I'm going to dig around a little when I get home as well. But those are some of the things that maybe we can put in there to say, yeah, this is why, right? It's a serious health issue.
Yes, it is.
And that's the position that we want to be clear with. If I don't want to word this in a way like I'm defending them, but if they're trying to bring the facility up to standards that would improve what's there now, right? And that's what the purpose of this proposal is. When we exit out of this, it needs to be clear whether we're supporting that or we're rejecting that. You know, we can also color how we feel about the history and the stuff around it, but you know, if this is going to improve what I saw, you know, I don't know how we need to make sure that we understand, or collectively that we all understand that it would be better than what it is now. Ultimately it sounds like they don't want it to exist at all, but you know, the existence and the continuance of the business is not on the table right now. Right now, I'm not even sure. I don't want to speak out of turn. I don't even know if our opinion will sway or change whatever's happening now. I'm not sure how much weight our opinion has on this matter, as far as their process of getting the permit approved, because it's the first time in 13 years that we're hearing about it. And we're only hearing about it now because it's a requirement for them to have this community engagement session. So coming out of it, I want us to just be clear about what they're asking for and weigh that against what it is now, and understand that whatever decision we decide to move forward with and support as a group is a support to either allow it to continue the way that it is now or support them in improving, and hopefully, because there's no guarantee that it will actually be better than what we saw, but hopefully that the outcome of whatever they're attempting or trying to do will be better than what we saw. Because you know, what I saw was something that looked like it was being done the same way since I was born. You know, it didn't look like something that should be happening in 2025 in the middle of a neighborhood. You know, I'm reading the comment. Yes.
Can we have Allison go and then Hazel?
Yeah.
If
Sorry. I see George. So I didn't I like George to speak.
oh, I
Um, yeah.
Sandra.
I just saw George's hand only because the map was blocking it.
Mhm.
I was looking up complaints. Mr. Tate?
Yeah,
You there,
good
Mr.
evening,
Tate?
everyone. And
Good evening.
I'm sorry, I'm just getting into the meeting because I did not get an invitation to the meeting.
Holiday.
Thanks, Adele. I just saw an email from Adele, and that's how I got into the meeting. But I just came in when Dr. Renault was asking that question. I just want to clarify one thing for her that and I don't know what was the conversation, whether they see something that medical or some kind of way was highlighted. I just want to make sure that about 20, 25 years ago, yes, there's a history. We had to take them to court or go. Nick Perry worked with us, and they are banned from having any waste other than construction debris. Okay, because for the whole summer, 2 summers, we couldn't go into our backyard. They had all kind of potentifiable materials there, which they are forbidden to have. So again, I don't know what the conversation was about, but I just want Dr. Renault to know that they are not allowed to have any petrifiable material in the place.
Thank you, Mr. Tate. Maybe this is
You're
why they
welcome.
were so nervous regarding them stating that it's a typo. This is what has to be included as well. We have to include what Mr. Tate just said.
Hey, I'm looking it up now. How long ago, Mr. Tate, would you say that happened?
I would say probably 20 years ago, because I remember Miss McGinnis, Mr. Kwashi, myself, Jackie Applewhite, and a few of us, we fought them tooth and nail. And
It was around
Miss Frazier,
1983.
okay,
83?
thank you.
83?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Might be a little bit later than that, because 83 is when I moved here.
Yeah, okay, around
So,
83, 85.
yeah, so, but I know Nick Perry really helped us with that. I could try and look up through my papers and see if I could find anything.
I didn't go to complaints yet, but I don't know if you visually see what I'm doing. I'm going through the DOB history right now. I'm in oath violations, and I'm just trying to find anything to support like this complaints. So okay, you said
The letter that that came from the council member Farrah Lewis listed a couple of things.
yeah, it
in the
listed that.
Yeah.
It definitely listed that. It listed some I think Daniels on the call. I think it listed some association with
with the mob.
yeah at some point. And got construction. I got this. Okay. Anybody else? Or were you finished, Mr. Tate? Anyone else wants to speak to If anyone wants to speak to their feelings or how they feel on the situation, just understand the idea is that we visited the site 2 times, some of us once. The open air operation, how they're operating now, especially adjacent to the school, is open. And I'm just bringing back what we're discussing so it doesn't get lost in everything else. What they're trying to do is to enclose a particular portion of their operation, which is the dealings of construction materials. How it's being done now, I didn't get to witness the first time I was there, but we witnessed it the second time. Is just to illustrate, it's imagine people coming in with their vehicles, whether it's a van or a truck. That truck gets weighed when it's entering. They probably have a tear weight for whatever they feel trucks are weighed, and then it goes to an open yard where it dumps that material. And as that material is being sorted through, they have an operating engineer that's on a backhoe, which is like one of these things that has those jaws that claw up the street, separating those materials, which creates the dust situation and which pushes the particulates that mostly mostly drove the conversation leading into our site visit that are happening. And the idea is for them to create or bring up to date the facility as it is. Um, the idea is that it would reduce all of that. That's the idea, but it doesn't necessarily, um, all of the science and all of the stuff that they're claiming could happen. You're leaving it in the hands of engineers to hope that they've engineered everything properly. They seem to have all the right answers, but whether it would actually equal out to something that's effective, only time will tell. So, are there any other hands and anything else in the chat? Adele, I saw that you made a comment. Did you want to speak on the subject?
No, that's why I contacted George.
Okay, very good. Very good. And Allison, your hand is still up.
Yeah,
Yes.
I just
Okay.
want to say, I personally think the project has to move forward to enclose that space. I don't think it's safe, the operating, continuing the way that it is. But I think this is something I think the community board often misses on a whole lot of different opportunities, but it should be yes with conditions. And the conditions have to include like these things that are clearly already written out for us to use, that we have an expert who's telling us are needed.
Mhm.
We also need to have the truck route adherence, which means that they have to have conversations with the people that they have these contracts with about making sure that they are sticking to using the approved truck routes. And also school programming and filtering, which has to be cleared up to make sure that they have proper filters for that school. Then the monitoring plan and implementation, and then consistent community report backs about what the findings are, from the monitoring that needs to go on. And there also needs to be a clear point person that community residents can call and contact should there be an issue or concern either with the truck route adherence or anything going on at that site. And we don't have that right now, but those are the things to me that are pivotal to actually changing the nature of the situation. Also, because we went on that rainy day, there's that ponding and all of that goes on even outside in the main street there, that I'm assuming they have to repair their sidewalk just like you would, a resident would have to. So they could take that on as a project. But I'm also going to say that I am a bit concerned about, in my opinion, the school's lack of response or lack of, I think, attention to this as a problem. I think just in terms of like even just safety for staff and students alone, I think the school needed to be more invested in showing up or having someone there be present and represent the needs of the people who are right next door to it basically every day.
I will say that we did get communication from one of the schools. I think it was Great Oaks. I can't confirm if they weren't at the first one. Everyone was wearing masks. And I kind of didn't show up when the introductions were made. So I can't say that somebody from 109 wasn't there, you know, but somebody from 109 is in the communications and has been receiving all of the details and correspondence. But actively, somebody from Great
Responding
Oaks. Yeah,
is
yeah,
is key.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Somebody one school definitely is actively and was actively there. I'll say that. But okay. So ironing
Those
out
are my
this
thoughts.
topic. Um, I don't know how do we galvanize this feeling. I think that somebody would need to make a motion. Someone needs to make a motion along the lines of what the proposal entails. Um, and ultimately, I think we had the discussion portion of it, but it could lead into more discussion to color the final points, and then we have to ultimately vote to decide where we stand as far as the project moving forward. Um, and of course, with conditional feedback, as always, wherever it lands, so we can move forward and bring it to the board attention, which I'm sure will bring up some more questions. But I think that we're at that point. Anyone want to make that motion? Or before I do that, Daniel, did you want to add anything that you observed potentially? No
Sure.
pressure. It was asking. I just saw your name. I just saw your name, so I just figured.
No worries. Thank you so much, Chair, for the acknowledgement, and everyone who likely knows me on this call. Good evening. I'm Daniel Heredia, here on behalf of Councilmember Farrah Lewis, just listening in. The only thing that I would note is our office did also reach out. Something that came up during my boss and I attended the first walkthrough, the first one that was scheduled, and some information that was not known to us previously was the involvement of the city agencies in this. It's great to note, I will echo what Allison
Yeah,
Martinez
let's
pointed
go.
out in regards to the flooding and ponding concerns outside, because what they had informed us of was their plan to put a water retention tank and a tie-in into the sewer system, the combined sewer system that serves all of East Flatbush, the main that's on Troy Avenue. And we are concerned with the fact that with the disparities in the flooding and lack of capital funding that goes to our overloaded sewer system as is, something we need to engage with DEP, the City Department of Environmental Protection, on whether that's really kosher, whether that's really going to be not a detriment to the community, because right now they wash the trucks and the water goes straight into the ground. They literally have an open pit where the drains are. And what they're proposing is collecting that water and doing some kind of filtering and having it tie into the sewer. That is a concern, especially, as everyone on this call has mentioned. How do we know that there aren't nanoparticles, carbon toxins that are in the materials that they're doing, asbestos, that isn't going to pollute the rest of the community? So I would likely, if Community Board 17 takes an action to DEC on this, I would reference that. But I will make sure that we share the response that we got back from DEP, because it came in just to our office just in the last week or so. And they are saying that they acknowledge that a lot of the reporting is very outdated, even from some of these air quality studies were done. So we are pressing them to renew some of the air quality monitoring studies that they had, because clearly they are not taking into account some of the more recent residential concerns. And if the committee needs any help pulling some of that 311 complaint data for this site, our office is happy to help and provide that information.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Sorry. I so wanted to make sure that I noticed that Daniel was there, I think both times. Maybe just the first time. But
I only
uh
came the first time.
yeah, the first time. But anybody that was actually at the site could provide the color that needs to be. So can anyone make that motion? Let's make the motion. Let's figure out where we land. I actually have to go get the voting papers. Anybody make the motion pertaining to our response?
Please let
I'm
us know if you're interested and just need help with your framing.
The motion?
Yes, just in case there's hesitance because of how to frame it.
okay. Joe Erskine here. I'm trying to figure out how to raise my hand. I can't figure it out. What are we voting on? What are we motioning for? We're going to write a letter saying, voicing our concerns. I understand what Allison said. I think those are all important. What Mr. Heredia brought up about we have problems with our sewers, our drainage system as it is. And if they're going from everything floating, going into the ground to going into the combined sewers, that's a big problem. So are we voting to write a letter with our concerns? What exactly are we voting on?
We are
I'm
voting
afraid.
on, we are voting in the support or the not support of the proposal for them to do their upgrades for the facility that they brought to the community board and our committee. We are voting on with the understanding of how they're operating currently and what their current permit that they're trying to get in hand will improve. Are we in support of said permit? Or are we in not support of said permit?
Well, I have a question here. I'm sorry to extend the
Sure.
discussion, but if as a community board, I'm not sure that we have we can stop them even if we voted against it. I'm not sure that that would stop them. But given our concerns, could we vote against it? And would that, if they don't get the permit, then they have to stop operations, correct?
Not particularly sure how that would happen or how that would play out. Ideally, I think our vote would be taken in consideration. I'm not sure if it would be taken as a vote of, I'm not sure how much weight our vote. Melanie, could you speak to what you read earlier? We were going in trying to understand what it is. We need to have an official response, but the weight of that response, can you speak to that?
Sure.
Because I don't have it in front of me.
Sure. I think it's important to note a couple of things, everyone. The framing of this letter that we draft to share with the DeCostal carding is going to be it's advisory in nature. The community board itself doesn't have the jurisdiction to stop of the permit process from moving forward or not, but it has an influence in that process and how it moves with the relevant stakeholder agencies that are a part of approving that process for DeCostal. So we do not inherently have the power to say yes or no to the upgrades they're making to their facility. But nonetheless, what we put into this letter is an agency related document that can be utilized to further support the work that, let's say, in the council member Farrah Lewis's effort to continue to hold the business accountable and to further investigate and ensure that they remain compliant and responsive to these concerns. This is something that can be leveraged by that agency. And so this is why it's important that we remain not only eyes on the ground by participating in visits such as what was arranged at the site and also for those of you that live or interact frequently in that area to have eyes on what's going on. It's also important that we do the research, such as has come up in many wonderful suggestions tonight, doing the historical research on how, I would say, not to make it like a digging exploration to just find anything to poke at the business, but to really look for information that is articulating your concerns that may have obviously felt have not been attended to. It's important to bring up the things that are backing up what your specifically named concerns are. And so we're trying to help lay those things out in this letter as well, so that it helps build on to the work that all of us with our varying attention to the issue can do to ensure the safety and well-being of the community. I want to just put it that way. And again, the nature of the letter is to what Kwame, Chair Frey is saying. This is in relation to, do we want these upgrades in the facility to move forward or not? If we understand the implications of each decision, if we were to vote, if we were to propose in this letter that we are not in favor of these upgrades taking place in the facility, then this could be influential in stalled progress to improvements at the facility that could help mitigate issues that are occurring in real time. If we vote to allow for these upgrades to continue, I think as Ms. Martinez, Allison Martinez, really well spoke to, we should be able to articulate what we feel needs to be done. So I know the point's been beat over the head, but I hope just for grounding purposes, everyone feels super clear. That is the goal.
I think I also want to add in that we need to have a call to action for our elected officials at the state level to make sure that there is a budget line for funding to do community-wide air quality monitoring and testing. And that involves going to DEC to make sure that we have what we need in our community to get a baseline understanding of what existing conditions are, and then work to develop mitigating strategies for how to improve what we know are issues here. And it's not just this site. We have the junkyard that has the fires constantly, all of these things. We have no idea what we're breathing in. And that's on top of all of the extreme heat, the soil issues, and everything else. So we need to actually have them. And in reality, these are not, what we're asking for is not suggestions or maybes, but these should be requirements that they are going to deliver on as a benefit to this community. Period.
Okay.
Mr. Tate,
yeah, I'm not sure whose hand was raised first.
it was Mr. Tate, and then Dr. Renaud.
Yes, okay. I do have a question. Like, again, I missed most of the meeting, so I don't know exactly what was discussed and what wasn't. But I know at the first meeting, the council member and excuse me, Assemblywoman Chandler was discussing with them about covering the whole field, because it was a part of it that they said they were going to leave it and they were not going to put any concrete asphalt in it. So I just wonder if they agreed to cover the whole thing, because if they don't, all that mud that's coming from the trucks in there is just going to come into our sewer, and it's going to complicate the issue. So I would like to see that in the proposal that we send them, that's included as one of the requirements, that they cover the whole field. do not leave any muddy area in there, because that was a point of discussion. So I don't know if Mr. Ray here have any update on that, because I know definitely the council member and the assembly member were vigorously requesting that.
To add, provide some color to what Mr. Tate is stating. The area where the building and the facility and the tracks where the trucks would be entering the facility is scheduled to be repaved now in the new design. The areas where the other recyclables are, which is more towards the south side of the facility, are currently not scheduled to be repaved. So the areas that aren't included in the C and D aren't scheduled to be repaved. And the idea is that if you have an area that's unpaved and you're handling materials over there, there's a higher chance for it to be airborne. So the request that was made that they can take into consideration of paving the entire facility completely, and that would also aid in the mitigation of dust. I believe the comment that was made, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Tate, was that for their drawing purposes that they engineered whatever the requirements were, and anything additional, I believe that they could just do on their own, as long as it doesn't violate or get in the way of anything that the DEC approved prior. It shouldn't have been an issue. That's what I was told.
Yeah,
And
yeah, you're basically right. That's what they said, that they could consider that at a later date. But my point is that I think we should ask
did
them
they
to do
commit?
it.
We got them for commitment. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
recommend that they do it, because and I know it was a long discussion regarding that, because all that mud that and we all see what happened when it rains over there, so all that mud is going to come and it's going to be washed into our drain, which I don't think just by
I'll have
covering it, you
pictures.
put asphalt over it, it would alleviate a lot of issues, and the fact that they said they will consider it at a later time. I mean, might as well just go ahead and ask them if they could do one thing, and then we don't have to go back and fight with them over that issue.
Gotcha. Thank you, Mr. Tate. Carol, Dr. Renault. Dr. Renault. Probably still driving. I guess we'll circle back. Ms. Silcott.
Good night, everyone.
Hello, I'm sorry, right after.
Sure, Ms. Silcott. The floor is yours.
Okay. Sure. Good night, everyone. Yes, I've been listening to the concerns. I do not really live in that area, but I do understand those concerns. I'm here figuring if we don't vote, and let me understand this clearly, if we vote for the upgrade or whatever, it continue as is understanding that the facility will continue as is?
No,
Um,
no.
We are
I get.
not.
Yeah,
Go
I'm
ahead.
trying to see if I can
Oh,
word it. So, yeah, a non-vote or a vote against it would be, um, it would be delaying the process, because I want to say that they're obligated to make these upgrades, and they've been trying to make these upgrades for 20 years, something like that.
mhm.
How voting to support their permit would be voting to improve the conditions of how they're operating now.
Oh,
voting to go against their permit with conditions or whatever the case would be saying that you're not really in favor of their upgrades. I would think that would logically be what our position would be, and the reasons would be because of this and that. What I don't want is for the reasons we list to be the things that they're trying to solve.
Just
You know, like we
okay.
don't want to like
Mhm.
if the medicine, if you're being poisoned for years, you can't be mad when the medicine shows up. It's kind of like it's a tough situation because they have historically been nefarious of doing multiple things in the community for years. We have a 40-year history. I'm pulling permits from 1989. So, but what's in front of us now is technically, at least on paper and how it's being presented, an improvement to the conditions.
Okay.
And our position needs to be whether we support that
Mhm.
with conditions or we don't support it and we allow it to go to whatever the authority having jurisdiction is for the area. Yeah, will be noted as being as going against whatever they proposed.
The improvement. Yeah, because what I see, I don't know how the process works, but what I'm hearing and what I'm understanding, and I think I would want is to get it out of the area altogether. But I guess that is another whole big process.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
I listened to all the dialogue and the talks tonight. I realized that this is it. And I understand we don't really know what's in that waste. It's very hard to see what is going to be coming in that waste.
Correct.
Until it's already there and, come through the system and already pollutes the atmosphere. And what I want us all to understand, as I mentioned earlier, I don't really live in the direct vicinity over there. But when something gets into the atmosphere, it's going to affect all of us.
Everybody. Yeah.
It will affect all of us. So it's on all our part to really come and support this thing and to vote one way or the other. I would say, well, then we just have to vote now and say with all the restrictions and the attachments of the letters that would go along with it. That would be my vote. Because our hands seem tied right now. It's either that it stays as is, or that's my thing. Thanks very much.
No problem, Ms. Silcott.
Yeah. Thank you.
Dr. Renaud?
Yes, pardon me, I was on mute before. I just want to stress that in addition to the expert advice that will be used, it would help to include as many stakeholders' voice as possible, such as the residents. That always makes something stronger. Data always makes something stronger as well. I'm going to use that address. I've been working with a Department of Health rep. I'm going to give him that address just to run a report to see if there's a higher level of incidence of cancer in that area. If there is, we can use it. If not, we don't even mention it.
Okay.
If you can find that information in the short amount of time, that would be very appreciated because I know that would take a lot of research. And thank you for being open.
When is the letter going in? He ran a report for us within a week on my block that I'm here. When is the letter going in?
Well. Here's the steps, just so you know that we're not ultimately against the clock. We're going to propose our version or our thoughts is going to be drafted into a letter that's going to be presented to the board ultimately, right? And at that point, if there's any additional pieces of information when we submit the letter for approval to a board, it could be added at that point or any point up until we actually send the letter out. So right now, because it's been about 3 months since the conversation began, it's actually like 4 months since the conversation began. I think that to not bring it into the summer and delay it any longer. We need to establish our position.
Mhm.
But it doesn't mean that the conversation ends there,
That's
right?
right.
It does mean that, you know, formally we would give a position to something that we was presented technically as a community in January. Then we had to, you know, scurry back and actually do many town halls and informative sessions, site visits to bring us to here, to the point where we have to actually stand on a stand on the line and make a decision of how we want to handle it or what the community's position is. So as a committee tonight, our goal is to um, galvanize the committee's position. Um, that doesn't necessarily mean that the board will feel that way, you know? Um, the board, when the information's given out, we're going to try to do our thing to try to make sure that we redistribute the pamphlets potentially at the meeting, or a shortened, consolidated version of the facts. So it's in with that within the board members' hands, because obviously every board member doesn't come to these meetings for these discussions. We try to give them as much information in a consolidated form, but
Mhm.
our purpose now is to just try to have a formal position, but it doesn't mean it's the end of the conversation. I don't want that to feel
Yeah.
like this is final. You know, they still have to continue through their process, and our response may actually garner a response from the agencies, the businesses, and all the places, which I'm sure we have support from the assembly member and our councilwoman on the matter, right? They're backing us, and collaboratively, we're going to all submit something from our various offices in whatever position we choose to take as a board ultimately. But this forum is here because the people in this committee specifically care and they're affected. So here's where we can gather and color the responses, and we want to do it in a way that when we bring it to the general board, that maybe everyone isn't affected, as that we're coloring it enough so they understand the impact of what the decision is, what it was in the past. They understand the history of it, and they can make an informed vote, not a vote made by committee or by emotion. You know, I'm just stating that. I know it was a little bit long-winded, but it's never the last and final with us. It never has been. Sometimes the people we speak to disappear, and it's to our benefit, or maybe nothing does happen. But in this particular case, I don't know if we don't want anything to happen. We want something to happen.
Yes.
Um,
And if
you
I
know,
if I may jump in, this is like Chair Frey spoke to it really well, so I'm not gonna be super redundant here. This would be a reflection, the letter we draft reflecting your sentiments would be our positioning on their upgrade um process at this time. So that based on the information we have on this time, it shapes the way that they are going about this in as productive a manner as possible. And we may continually, as necessary, with more information that's taken in, revise or update our position. With that, I want to just note, as I wrote in the chat, we are going to have to close this conversation shortly. We have to be mindful of the time. And
understood.
also Chair Frey did prompt us trying to complete a motion process so that we can establish a position of sorts tonight. So would anyone be interested to make the motion?
Wait, may I just add, just before we do that, so that just in case it may impact some people's votes, there's
Okay,
no reason why we can't say and open that letter with our ideal position is the eradication of this type of business within our community. And then in light of that being our ideal outcome, if that's not going to be possible at this point, we can continue as a community working towards as an ultimate goal. However, in light of just making this existing condition better than it currently is, this is what we want, and the conditions that under which this can work for the time being, while we galvanize whatever forces we need to for that ultimate outcome of getting rid of this type of business in our community. I think that allows us to really deal with what our ultimate goal is, but the realities of today. I think also we have to, it's not just about them and the work and the space, it's how community engagement is done with these industries and our communities, where they're just basically doing whatever and not really having that accountability. And that has to be key, that
Is there
it's
allowed?
two steps that have to change. And it does impact not just the people living at ground zero, because air doesn't stay right there. It spreads throughout the entire community. So those board members, even if they don't live right next to it, they're still impacted by it, whether they're aware of that or not. So we need to make that clear to them when they're voting.
I agree. That's why.
Pardon me, pardon me.
Sorry.
Sorry, just for the sake of keeping things orderly. We are going to move forward for the sake of time. If there's anything you would want to articulate, please do communicate it in the chat, because we are diligently note-taking to reflect all your sentiments in the way we draft this letter. But for the sake of time, kindly, respectfully, we do need to move forward to the motion.
But you, I'm sorry, and then to be rude, but you are denying the two people who are the closest to the most closely affected.
Mr. Tate, Mr. Tate, I'll allow, we'll get the motion placed, and there will be a place for discussion. And at that time,
Well,
I will
yeah, no,
specifically
that's-
allow you and Ms. Quashie to speak, being that you're directly affected. But right now, we just need to get the business of the motion on the table, and the conditions of the motion and the conversation portion, I'll give you to the floor to speak to what you're trying to speak to now.
Yes.
Is that fair?
It's fair, but it would, you mean after the vote, before the vote?
It's not after the vote. It's before the
I
vote.
just want to make sure that my
The motion goes on the
I'm
floor.
not misunderstood. Okay.
Yeah, motion goes on the floor.
God.
It gets brought to the floor for discussion, the Roberts rules, right? After that discussion portion is closed, then we go in for a vote. Okay? So you'll have an opportunity to speak prior to the voting. Is that clear? Do we have anybody that would like to color the nature of this motion? I'd do it, but I can't.
Right.
Mhm.
I'll do it.
Mhm.
I
State your name,
move,
please.
oh, sorry, Allison Martinez, for the record. I move that the committee draft a letter stating its ultimate vision of the eradication of this type of industry from the community. However, in the meantime, as it relates to Decostol and 1481 Troy, move that we support the enclosure of that space with a list of conditions for both DEC and the business itself as it relates to enclosure, dealing with the ponding, dealing with the paving, the school next door programming, and also establishing a point person and other recommendations to be determined by the committee.
Do we have a second?
Antoinette Smart, second the motion.
All right. So I didn't do the friendly amendment, but we also want to include the suggestion from the person you brought to the facility. And we want to also include the continuous monitoring of the particulates, the air quality and the sound quality, right? At this time, I open the floor for discussion, and the floor is Mr. Tate. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. But basically, what I was going to, Ms. Martinez basically said everything. Because I was going to say, yes, the place needs to be enclosed. Okay, because I know I've been talking and giving mostly negative about it, but I am offering closing it, but with the conditions that we came up with. So basically, Ms. Martinez said what I was going to say. So thank you for the time.
No problem. Ms. Quashie?
Yes, thank you. What I want everyone to remember is 9/11. Everyone said that the air quality was fine, and then everyone got sick later. So I want you, when you consider how you're going to vote about the Costoli, remember 9/11. Thank you.
Very well. Is there anybody or any other comments, concerns that need to be made before we move into the voting portion? Seeing none. Okay. Start with the vote. I gotta make a list of some of these. I didn't get an updated list, so I'm gonna take from memory, Miss Robinson. You're actually here. Do you vote in support?
I support
Or
the
do-
motion.
Chair Frey, just for record purposes, do they can say yes simply, they don't have to say yes with conditions, because the conditions are outlined in the framing of the motion, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
All
So
right,
yes,
so, all right. Ms. Quashie?
I support.
Okay. Let's go in order. Mr. Tate?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Martinez? Hazel? Sorry.
Yes.
Ms. Erskine?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett? Pat? Ms. Bennett?
I abstain.
Okay. Okay. And, you have Mr. Johnson?
I'm a yes for the upgrades, but just for the record, I'm a no for them tying into the city sewer line. Because once they enclose it, who knows what they're gonna do? Because you can already see that I wouldn't say they can't be trusted, but if they're not being supervised, who knows what they'll flush.
Dr. Carolyn, no?
Yes, and I know the conditions are there.
Thank you. Ms. Silcott?
Yeah.
And Allison Martinez?
Yes.
Very good. We have Melanie Wilkerson?
yes.
Okay. Mr. Holland? It's been a while.
Yes, I support. Yes, I support.
Okay. Ms. Viglianti?
Yes, I support it with also one of the conditions being that they don't tie into our sewer line.
Oh, Ms. Johnson. Ms. Johnson?
I support with the conditions and also not tying into the sewer line.
I'm going to state that I don't know if that's a possibility or feasibility, but we'll include it. I do need to do some research on that. I think that's a part of the entire thing. But I won't. We'll keep it. We'll keep it. Khadijah,
Okay. Good change.
Antoinette, Ms. Smart.
Yes, the conditions are already outlined, so yes.
Thank you. I'm not sure. Ms. Hudson, is that you?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, you had the initial there. I wasn't too sure.
Oh.
Was that yes, just to confirm, was that yes confirming your vote is yes?
My vote is yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
And
you.
Ms. Watson. Ms. Watson? No vote for Ms. Watson right now. Did I miss anybody? Because there's people on the phone, but I'm not sure who they are. If you're on the phone and you're an active committee member, could you unmute yourself, state your name, and give me your vote?
Yes, good evening. My name is April Rayford, and I vote yes for the upgrade.
Okay, Ms. Rayford. Thank you. All right. Anyone else? Ms. Bennett?
Yes, I'd
Yeah,
like to
Ms. Bennett.
change my,
Yes, she.
I
I'd
think
like
she,
to change my vote.
Two.
Yes, with the same conditions, if they do not connect to the sewer system or use underground storage for the water.
mhm.
Okay.
Chair Frey, if there's no other,
Yeah, I think that we're good.
I
I
think we
think that
have,
covers it.
it's all yeses. I have a
Yeah.
count of 17. Is that your count?
Let me count it real quick. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 17,
Okay.
including me. Or not including me. Did you
Not
include me?
including you.
So yes, I'm 18. Okay.
Uh,
All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll draft the letter. You'll see it at the meeting. It seemed like it was overwhelmingly yes, 17 yeses,
18.
18 yeses. So that motion passes, and we're gonna have our position out there, like we spoke about. It won't be the end. We'll just touch on the Con Edison thing that happened at the meeting. For anybody who wasn't there, there was gonna be some proposed. They're trying to build a substation in the community located, I think, on 91st Street in Ditmas. This is all from memory. The presentation that they gave us was very limited. They didn't have a lot of information, but the details and the facts that they've given us is that they did acquire the building in 2023, which means it was only 2 years ago. They are trying to bring additional power to the neighborhood. It does affect us marginally, but it will be an additional distribution points for power within the neighborhood. It's separating a certain grid into two
Mhm.
sections, an A and B, and that grid would provide additional power for the neighborhoods that it's adjacent to, which is ours, of course, and
Mhm.
some of Brownsville. And it'll also in the outcome, it'll be a new building, a new facility, a new thing that I think would be, whether the environmental impact of it, I'm not too sure. Can you guys hear me?
Now we do, yeah.
Okay, all right, sorry. Yeah, so that's forthcoming. We did ask them to join us tonight. They did have to reschedule, but we're hoping that when they do meet up with us, that they do have something with more details.
Yeah.
Because they are moving forward in the permit process. They are at the process of where they need to do their community engagement. It is technically still early, but they are preparing the grounds for the utility upgrade. I just want to make that clear. So if you do see any communications that go out pertaining to Con Edison, the likelihood of that meeting being dedicated specifically to that topic and to speak to those people directly will be the purpose of it. And I
Mhm.
want to make sure you know that we're on top of it. I'm in communication with the project manager that was there that night, and they're also in communication with our office
Mhm.
to let us know when would be a more feasible time to actually have that conversation at length. Okay, that hasn't been forgotten. Um,
Yes,
yeah, oh,
I would add the point that
a
one
lot
of
of hands. Hold on.
yeah.
Are these old hands or
I saw some of the hands as they sprouted up.
okay?
I would acknowledge Miss Marguerite first. I just want to offer one thing I remember distinct in the presentation they note is that while this is a process that has been ongoing now, at least for the last 2 to 3 years in some preliminary stages, and this substation build out is one key component of about a 10-year process. They had noted that this substation development was was a part of what was deemed an inevitably necessary build out due to the power overload that the area that the current substation in Brownsville that does supply a majority of our district's energy is slated to burn out in the next few years. So this is a part of an effort they noted um, to avoid that power grid failure. So Miss Marguerite, if you could go first, and then we'll have, I had seen Miss Hazel Martinez and then Miss Allison Martinez.
Hi, yes, good evening. It was my understanding from the board meeting that this substation was going to provide power to like Vinegar Hill or something. It wasn't
Thank
for us
you.
exactly. You're
It doesn't
welcome.
provide power to Vinegar Hill. It gets transmission power from Vinegar Hill to this point, and the substation converts that power to a smaller power, which then gets distributed to the transformers that are above ground and overhead in our neighborhood. It will
That isn't
ultimately
what they
supply
said.
power to the neighborhood.
Yeah, it's a little
That's not what they
confusing
said.
because I thought the energy source from the windmills was coming to the substation and then going to Vinegar Hill. But I could be wrong. If you're right, fine. But I didn't see it that way from the way they had it laid out. But I don't
Okay.
know anything about electricity, so I,
All right.
I step back.
No, it's okay. If you heard that, we'll speak to it more when we can.
Okay. Thanks.
But we'll make sure that that presentation, which I have the slide decks for, gets distributed to everybody before the next meeting. It doesn't have a lot of information, but it will illustrate that at a minimum. I'll try to get it up before the meeting's end. But hearing any other hands, you speak to that?
Miss Hazel
Speak to your comments?
Martinez.
Yes. I'll
Oh,
try to get the
yes, Hazel
presentation up in the
Martinez.
meantime.
I agree with Marguerite because that was my understanding when the question was asked at the board meeting if the person, if Con Edison was going to be providing electricity to this community as opposed to some other, there was no answer. They did not say that it was our community. And we have a lot of brownouts and we have our electricity out a lot. And I'm personally not interested in Dumbo or the Navy Yard's electrical problems because they could have put those things down there. This thing is they just came to tell us what they're doing. They're not interested in what we think about anything because that they've already demolished the building and they have an end date for when it will be erected. The building will be erected, and it is actually really next to a park. And there are residential homes in that neighborhood, and they did not give any definitive information regarding all the electromagnetic fields or anything like that. They claim they've done studies, but they didn't bring any when they came to speak.
They did not. I agree with you. They're very limited in the information. Extremely limited.
Miss Allison Martinez, then Miss Adele Bennett, and then we will need to close due to time.
Yeah.
I got you.
I honestly essentially these areas like Brownsville and in this case East Flatbush too, this area we're basically used to service outside of where we live. And there's no, in this plan that they brought, no discussion about dealing with the brownouts that occur here. That to me is a problem because they haven't done, again, lack of real community engagement about the existing issues that impact residents and businesses whose appliances and the like have been damaged by transformers that pop every couple months or so, or go dim in and out. But what I really think is needed from just looking at what we're seeing with these issues is we need to have like a community forum with these entities of infrastructure and utilities, all of those, to really talk about the existing conditions and problems people are facing, the increase in costs, what resilience and sustainability looks like, and the pros and cons of these projects and honestly, what are the future projects that are already in the pipeline that we don't know anything about at all to begin with? So we need to have them be accountable to us, and especially because we're being tasked with basically being the site to store and create what's needed to empower and make other spaces across the city more viable, or what they need. Not to mention, they seem to act as though they had no idea about IBX, which I think it makes sense. This is could be part of laying the groundwork for supporting the electricity for that project. So if that's the case, we need to have a lot more knowledge about what that looks like and what that means.
Okay. Sorry,
Miss
I can't
Bennett,
really see.
I got it. Miss
Oh, Diane?
Bennett, you have the last comment on the floor.
I'll try to PDF this and send this to everybody.
Miss
It's a
Bennett,
pretty big file, though.
one more time. You have the last comment on the floor.
A pretty huge file.
Right.
Oh, Miss Bennett, you're breaking up.
Yeah, you're breaking up, Miss Bennett.
Yeah.
Sorry. Anybody else? We'll send this file. This isn't really telling you anything, though. I gotta be honest with you. This isn't really saying much.
So
Okay.
just to affirm, we definitely wanted this meeting to kind of take shape as part of an attempt at a community forum. So we'll be following up to ensure that something of that nature can come together.
Very good. Hearing no other, is there any other new business?
No,
The
just
voting
one
of the
thing. I
minutes?
don't want us to be duped into letting them come and present before this committee and consider that their work in terms of community engagement. It needs to be out something larger and in person outside of this. And I feel like they were trying to just see if they could skate by with doing this and that be that. No.
Sure. Understood. Ms. Farah, I saw you unmuted. Did you need something before we?
Yeah, I know you guys are coming to a close for tonight's meeting, and I was just hoping you guys would vote for the minutes. I believe we have a quorum, and we
We
weren't
do
able to
now.
vote on them last month either.
Yes.
Thank you.
So quickly, you do have, or was sent to you in the email invitation for this, the minutes for June and April of this year. Could someone make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'm Joan Erskine. I move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Hazel Martinez seconds.
All right. Is there any amendments, adjustments, or changes that need to be made? And for the minutes, anybody? Hearing none, in the interest of speed, I'll do a voice vote. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 All right.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Are there any recorded abstentions? Excellent. With that notion, the meeting minutes have been approved and seconded. Thank you. At this time, does somebody make a motion for adjournment if there isn't any other new business? I see
Aye.
hands up.
Hazel Martinez, I have a business item. I would like
Okay.
you to find out for me, there's an issue at 1482 Brooklyn Avenue where there's a new construction. It is damaging the yards of the surrounding residents. There have been several partial stop work orders where no work is to be done outside. What is the purpose of a stop work order if work continues and there's no enforcement?
That was an issue. 1482 Brooklyn Avenue, you said?
Brooklyn Avenue, yes.
All right, I'll look into it. And you're saying the
Okay.
nature of it is that there's debris and stuff going on to neighbors' yards? Like, what am I? Or you want to know
Well-
the status of why they stop work? Are they getting their
Well, they
stop works?
had the developer had an agreement with the residents, which he did not adhere to. He gave them bad checks and all of that. And now he doesn't have that, they're no longer enforced, but he's had 2 stop work orders last week alone, but they continue to do the work outside.
Okay. All right, I'll look into it.
May we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I, Carol Renault, make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I, Joan Erskine, second the motion.
Motion's been
Adjourn.
moved and properly seconded. Thank you, everybody. We'll be in communication. The time is 9:20. Have a good evening. Happy Memorial Day. If I don't see you before then. 17th is my birthday, so
Happy
there's that.
birthday.
Happy
Yeah,
birthday.
appreciate that.
Happy
Hope you
birthday.
have a wonderful
Let
birthday.
them know. Let them know.
Thank you.